Have you ever seen a toddler proudly showing off a scribbled drawing? That's the joy of being perfectly imperfect, and it's something we all need more in our lives. Hi, I'm Dr. Rue. I'm a psychologist, and I'm here to unpack the human mind. My channel shows you easy ways to handle tough times and grow stronger. So stick around. Today we're going to talk about 3 important things. First, we look at why trying to be perfect is a trap. Then we'll talk about what causes perfectionism. And finally, we'll learn 3 things that you can do to love all the not so perfect parts about you. I want to start with this story. There was this pottery class, and the teacher split the class into 2 groups on the first day. He told the first group, you guys will be graded on how much you will make. If you make 50 pounds of pots, you get an A, 40 pounds of pots, you get a B, and so on. The second group, he told them, you only need to make 1 pot, but it's gotta be the perfect one in order to get an A. Now, when it was time to grade their work, the teacher found something really interesting. The best pots, the really top quality ones, were all made by the first group, the ones who were just focused on making as many pots as they could. They were cranking out pot after pot, learning from their mistakes each time. So meanwhile, the second group, who were supposed to make the perfect pot, spent all their time just thinking about how to make it perfect. In the end, they didn't really have anything to show for. They were so caught up in getting it perfect that they hardly made anything at all. So as you can see, perfectionism is a trap. In a research that was done, it was found that young people today are much more likely to try to be perfect compared to young people 30 years ago. The study looked at over 40,000 college students in the US, Canada, and the UK. And the goal was to understand how the need to be perfect changed from the late 1980s to 2016. The research focused on 3 kinds of perfectionism. The first part is the self-oriented perfectionism. This is when you really push yourself to be perfect. It's like getting super high standards for yourself and getting upset if you didn't meet them. The second is other-oriented perfectionism. This is expecting other people to be perfect. It's just like getting annoyed or upset when others don't meet the high standards that you set for them. The third one is socially prescribed perfectionism. And this is feeling like everyone else expects you to be perfect. It's like thinking that your friends, family, our society won't accept anything unless you are the best at everything. The study found some worrying trends. From 1989 to 2016, the number of people who were hard on themselves went up by 10%. And the number of people who were hard on others went up by 16%. But the number of people who felt pressured from others to be perfect jumped by 33%. This increase in trying to be perfect might be linked to more mental health problems among young people. There is more depression, more anxiety, and thoughts of suicide than there were ever a decade ago. So what causes perfectionism, you ask? Perfectionism can be caused by several reasons, and it's often related to how we think and what we've experienced in life. So let's break it down a little bit. The first one is related to unhelpful thinking patterns. Unhelpful thinking patterns, like thinking in extreme or holding on to rigid beliefs. This can lead to perfectionism. So it's like seeing everything as either totally perfect or a complete disaster, with no middle ground. For instance, so consider someone who believes that any meal they cook must be worthy of a 5-star restaurant review. If a dish doesn't turn out exactly as planned, they might see it as a total failure instead of just a normal part of learning and experimenting in a kitchen. It's kind of all or nothing thinking can make them feel constantly inadequate as they're setting an unrealistic standard for themselves. Another reason could be lack of information about yourself. This is like you're not quite sure of your own worth and abilities, and you heavily rely on others for approval to feel valuable. So for example, say you were always picked last at sport team in school, and leading you to feel like you're not athletic. So now as an adult, you might push yourself excessively in a gym or sport, trying to prove to others and yourself that you are indeed athletic, driven more by the need for validation than by a genuine enjoyment of the sport, of your personal goals. Another reason could be fear of failure and rejection. This is the worry that people will reject you if you're not perfect. Say as a kid, your parents expected you to be perfect all the time. Now you might be scared to try new things because you're afraid of failing or being judged. It's like avoiding a new sport because you're worried that you won't be good at it right away. And the last one could be fear of success. This might sound a bit strange, but success can be scary because it feels like a lot to live up to. You might keep pushing for perfection because you think that's the only way to maintain success. It's like staying in a job that you don't like because it looks good for your resume, even if it feels and it makes you very unhappy. Now that we understand how quickly we can fall into this perfectionism trap and why it happens, I want to leave you with 3 things that you can do to manage your perfectionism. But before we're gonna get into it, I invite you to subscribe so that you will not miss out on any of additional videos with valuable information. So let's unpack this one. The first thing that you can do is to see the big picture. When we talk about seeing the big picture, what we're really discussing is understanding the true value of our time and effort. Now let's break it down. You're working on a project. Maybe it's for school, work, and you aim for perfectionism because normally you want it to be great. That's commendable, that's great. But here's where it gets tricky. You start spending extra hours on tiny details, aligning every image just right, checking and rechecking every sentence. Now ask yourself, does spending 3 more hours adjusting the font size and the color scheme really enhances the score quality of your overall work? And often the answer is no. The core of your project, the research, the content, the idea, that's already there. Those extra hours are just about appearances and not substance. Let's put this into a real life scenario. Imagine that you're baking a cake for a friend's birthday. You baked a delicious cake. It tastes fantastic. But when you start obsessing over the icing and you spend hours trying to get it absolutely smooth, no air bubbles, perfectly even, yes, it might look slightly better, but the taste, the heart of the cake hasn't changed. Your friend will appreciate it not for the flawlessly smooth icing, but for the effort and the love that you put into baking it. Seeing the big picture is recognizing when good enough is really good enough. It's about stepping back and asking, have I already met the 3 goals in this project? Am I now just focusing on minor details and not add significant value? It's understanding that perfectionism has its place, but it's not in every detail of everything we do. It's about balance, doing a great job where it counts, and being okay with just good enough where it doesn't. So next time when you find yourself stuck on a small stuff, remember to step back, look at the goal, look at the overall goal, and ask yourself if the extra time you're investing is really improving the outcome or just satisfying a desire for perfectionism that is grand scheme of things. And it might not be important as you think. The second thing that you can do is adjust your standards. This is a concept that can really change the way that you approach your work and your life as a whole. This is about understanding when a task is sufficiently completed and just resisting the urge to keep polishing it endlessly. So let's say you're writing an essay. I'm all about school lately, right? You've done your research, you put your ideas down, and it reads well. So the next step, instead of spending countless additional hours trying to make it perfect, show it to someone. Maybe a teacher, a friend, a family member, and get their feedback. Often you'll be surprised to hear that it's already hitting the mark, and maybe it needs just a few tweaks, but it's essentially there. The key is to remember that not everything has to be a masterpiece. Adjusting your standards doesn't mean lowering them. It means setting them at a realistic level. It's recognizing the point at which further effort doesn't actually improve the outcome significantly. And it's understanding that excellence, it's not about perfection in every detail. It's about doing a good job on what really matters. When you learn to adjust your standards appropriately, you'll find that you're not only more productive, but also less stressed. You'll be able to complete tasks more efficiently because you're not getting bogged down by unnecessary details. And most importantly, you'll be able to appreciate the quality of your work without the nagging feeling that it's never quite good enough. So next time you're working on something, ask yourself, is this already meeting the requirements? Am I just adding extra work for marginal improvements? If the answer is yes, it might be time to say, this is good enough, and move on. It's how you adjust your standards by focusing on what's really important and letting go of the unrealistic pursuit of perfectionism. The last thing that you can do is stop overthinking. Easier said than done, right? Now, it's something we all need to master, me included. You know that feeling when you're stuck on a thought and it's turning over and over in your mind without getting anywhere? That's rumination. It's like a record stuck on repeat, if anybody's using records anymore. Just playing the same part of the song over and over and over again. And let's be honest, it doesn't solve anything. It just makes you feel stuck. So what do you do when you catch yourself in this loop of overthinking? The trick is to find a way to break that cycle. Say you're worried about a test you took, and you keep thinking, did I answer question 5 right? What if I got it wrong? What if my score dropped? This kind of thinking isn't helping you. The test is already over. Instead, shift your focus. It could be as simple as doing a small chore, like cleaning or organizing your room or your desk, or reminding yourself of a time when you did well on a different test. Reflect on what you did right that time. By doing so, you're essentially changing the track of your mental record player, and you're giving your mind something else to focus on, something more productive or positive. You are redirecting that train of thought into a different track. The aim here is to move away from the loop of unproductive thoughts and towards something that either solves a problem, makes you feel a little bit better, or at least puts your mind into just a more constructive path. I want you to remember that everyone overthinks sometimes, but it's how you handle it that counts. Learning to recognize when you're stuck in a loop of rumination and having just the strategies of breaking away and breaking out of it. That's a skill that will help you. So next time when you find yourself overthinking, just remember to pause, switch gears, and give your mind a new, more positive direction. So let's walk out of here today not afraid of our imperfections. Let's celebrate being imperfect, and remember, practice makes progress. If you find this information helpful, share below. I'd love to know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to be part of your journey. Until next time, I wish you love and light.